Looking back today, when we say, hey, we bought the UFC for $2 million, people say, oh, you stole it. I'm not sure we did. I'm not sure it was worth $2 million when we bought it.
Lorenzo Fertitta is the CEO of the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which is currently valued at about $4 billion. He owns it along with his older brother, Frank Fertitta, and their high school buddy, Dana White. Growing up in Las Vegas, where there were no professional sports teams, Lorenzo got to watch a lot of boxing instead.
I was really able to see some of the greatest fights in boxing history.
Lorenzo's father started Station Casinos in the 1970s. Lorenzo and his brother took the company public in 1993 when he had just finished grad school.
So you're a millionaire at 24?
Yes, yes.
Then a few years later, he bumped into his high school friend Dana White at a wedding.
I think we've probably talked to each other 27 times a day since that day.
So one day, Lorenzo, Frank, and Dana all went down to New Orleans to watch a big UFC fight.
Nobody even knew the UFC was in town, and that's how small as an event that it was at the time. There was no organization, there was no buzz. I wanted to go buy like a t-shirt or buy a program. There was nothing there. And it was really that moment when we were sitting in our seats at that fight, when me, Frank, and Dana, sitting in a row, looked at each other and said, either there's something extremely wrong with us wanting to be here to watch these guys fight in the octagon, or this is not a very well executed business, and there's a lot more opportunity here.
The UFC wasn't just unpopular, it was also banned by almost every state athletic commission, and no cable networks would run the fights. The owner, Bob Marowitz, was looking for money to keep the business alive.
So I cold called Bob. It was a very short conversation. He said he was looking for $1 million for half the business. So I talked to Frank and called him back and said, we're not interested in having partners. I'll offer to buy the whole thing for $2 million.
But $2 million didn't get them much more than a wooden octagon and some fighter contracts.
You know, for the next, I would say, 5 years, it was a real grind.
The brothers spent $40 million trying to make the sport safer and more palatable.
We want to make it more fan-friendly. We want to get the crowd involved in it.
We had so much pushback from networks when we would go pitch to them and say, hey, we own the UFC, we want to put fights on TV.
How many no's did you get?
You count the networks, everybody. I mean, we literally got to the point where if we could have put it on the Food Network, we would have put it on there. I mean, we knew that just going out selling fights wasn't working, so we had to change our strategy. And that's when we came up with the idea of the Ultimate Fighter.
Since they couldn't get networks to pick up regular fights, they made a reality show where each episode ended in a fight.
We like to say it was our Trojan horse.
Dana White hosted, and the overall winner got a contract with the UFC.
The Ultimate Fighter ended up being the turning point for the company.
But to get it on the air, they bankrolled the entire production themselves and gave it to Spike TV to run for free.
And because we paid for it, we owned all the rights. That was the key moment, because even today, one of the real points of value in the UFC is that we own 100% of everything.
Tradition is tradition. Fine whiskey and good business.
Good business.
Only more good stuff to come.
Yes.
Right?
The UFC today has earned itself a spot as a primetime sport and is watched by millions around the globe.
The great thing about our sport is that everybody understands fighting. And we have the ability, because of that, to really appeal to everyone around the world.
So you own fighting globally?
Well, we own the UFC, which is the strongest brand in fighting.